As I said when I ran for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. It's already legal in many states, and criminal records for marijuana possession have led to needless barriers to employment, to housing, to educational opportunities. And that's before you address the racial disparities around who suffers the consequences. While white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people are arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionately higher rates. So today, I'm taking 3 steps to end this failed approach. First, I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them. Second, I'm calling on all governors to do the same for state marijuana possession offenses. Third, the federal government currently classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance, the same as heroin and LSD, and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. So I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. Even as federal and local regulations of marijuana change, important limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales should stay in place. Too many lives have been upended because of our failed approach to marijuana. It's time that we right these wrongs.
All right, guys, in today's brief video, I'm going to be reacting to President Biden's recent speech regarding marijuana law and regulation. And what my reaction is really going to be is more a reaction to the federal legalization that is soon to come. That's really what this speech is foreshadowing. And I think our markets would agree if you're looking at the marijuana sector of stocks and stuff like that. I would love for you guys to participate in today's conversation by leaving comments below because I would love to hear your opinions. Specifically, what I want to talk about is the benefits and the downfalls to federal marijuana legalization. That's what I'm going to cover in today's video. If you're new to the channel, my name's Dr. Frank. I'm the founder of AddictionMindset recovery coaching programs, which are dedicated to helping people quit nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content, substances that I once struggled with. If you want more information about our free and paid programs, be sure to check out the pinned comment, the video description, or my profile for more information about the Addiction Mindset recovery coaching programs. The first thing would be, and President Biden covered some of these topics, would be the benefits to federal legalization of marijuana or weed cannabis products. The first would be the end to these discriminatory practices. I think this is a great move in the right direction as far as having people no longer incarcerated for the simple possession of marijuana, right? We're not talking about dealing. We're not talking about DUI related charges. We're talking about simple marijuana possession, relatively small quantities. Yeah, there's no reason to be thrown in jail for this. The next thing is I think it's also really good to remove the barriers as far as discrimination goes when it comes to housing and employment opportunities. We obviously have tons of people constantly calling our offices, trying to quit smoking weed just for the sake of passing a drug test. And although I believe, especially a privately held company, an employer has the right to say, hey, I don't want my employees on substances, I don't necessarily think it's fair that someone could go home and drink alcohol every night, never be tested for that, and have an equally poor or poorer work performance the next day than someone who perhaps smokes weed at night after work hours. I will be curious, though, to see what role this plays in health insurance companies and life insurance, because as far as I'm concerned, even if you smoke marijuana and you're smoking, that will still rate you at a higher category for life insurance coverage. You'd be viewed as a smoker, I'm pretty sure. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. One of the things that President Biden mentioned that I'm most excited about is his call for this to no longer be a scheduled substance as like cocaine or fentanyl. This is huge because not only of the legal ramifications, but this is why we don't have long-term studies on cannabis, on marijuana. And we need long-term research so bad. Like, This is where we've had a massive screw up on every level, not allowing for long-term research because it's a scheduled substance. So I think this is huge. This is going to open up the doors to all types of research when it comes to not only marijuana, but the endocannabinoid system, the terpenes, and the other, 101 phytocannabinoids found in the cannabis plant. And research is going to be a double-edged sword, and this is important. We're going to be able to find out the positives, and we're going to be able to learn more about the negatives, because like any drug, like any substance, there's going to be positives and there's going to be negatives. And we want to go into legalization of marijuana knowing both sides of that sword, in my opinion. This is also another benefit that we're going to receive is access to tested and quality product. If we were to land on federal legalization, there's going to be more state regulated, federally licensed, even perhaps, marijuana facilities. And they're going to be under the oversight of something. I don't know if it's the FDA, I don't know if it's alcohol, firearms, and tobacco. Something is going to oversee these facilities. And I assume one of the requirements is going to be the lab testing or the COAs. And this is super important. We have, in my opinion, a complete epidemic of black market marijuana containing products. And I think especially when it comes to the cartridges, I was smoking dank vapes throughout the end of my weed journey, my weed addiction. And that was really bad. That was really horrible. Nonetheless, I think federal legalization, federal regulation in this case would actually be a huge benefit because it's going to require more stringent testing. And I think it's also going to allow us to lay down the hammer on these black market dispensaries, black market products, things that just really should not be in people's hands that are, quite frankly, giving a very bad rap to marijuana. Not to mention that's predominantly what's definitely is an epidemic in our high schools and on our college campuses today. So access to better quality product, huge benefit. The last two benefits to federal legalization would be taxes and jobs. Federal legalization is obviously going to bring in a ton of tax revenue, and it's also going to increase the job market. The more marijuana becomes federally legalized, the more job opportunities there's going to be for people to work in dispensaries, to work in grow operations, all of those different things. And I am sure they are going to tax the hell out of it, which I suppose the government needs more money, but that's a whole different topic. Now, let's talk about some of the negatives when it comes to marijuana legalization. The first negative is addiction. We're going to see the rates of addiction go up with legalization of marijuana. We're going to see the rates of DUIs go up with marijuana. We're going to see all of these things increase. And I actually think I mentioned DUIs just now. That's going to be a complicated topic because if someone's in a DUI and they hit someone and that person dies, they're going to be charged with vehicular manslaughter. And if they get their blood work done or a hair follicle test and they test positive for marijuana, let's say 30 days since they last smoked, but they're testing positive, are they still going to classify that as a DUI? I'm going to be really curious to see how they figure that one out. Going back to addiction, though, addiction is a very real possibility. Right now, marijuana addiction will occur in about 9 to 10% of users, which is pretty standard among most drugs that people use. And I have a feeling it's actually a lot higher than this. People just aren't reporting it, or we don't have the studies on it because it's been a federally scheduled substance. But I think addiction is going to be a massively growing problem. And I can tell you exactly what you're going to hear. When they legalized online betting and gambling here in New York, basically what happens is you hear a commercial for online gambling and betting, and then it immediately follows up with, call this number if you're suffering from gambling addiction or need help, right? People are going to make money on both ends of this. Okay. CHS, psychosis, depression, and anxiety, long-term marijuana use does not have many promising studies when it comes to helping with depression, anxiety, psychosis, PTSD. Long-term use of THC, I guess I should be more clear. It's looking pretty negative right now. And one, this is why we need more studies. Two, I think with legalization, there's going to be this immediate misconception that marijuana must be super beneficial. And there, don't get me wrong, there's benefits, especially short term. I experienced them myself at points throughout my life. But I think if we're not warning people about things like psychosis and cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, if we're not going to start to see federal warnings on bottles of marijuana or prescription products or recreational products, I think we're going to have a huge problem. Just 2, 3 years ago, the amount of people who didn't know what CHS was huge. There are still several physicians. It's on average 7 ER visits for a person with cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome to be properly diagnosed. So I really do think we need more awareness about the side effects. And I think we're going to see a lot more side effects with federal legalization, with these increasing concentrations of THC found in legal products. Youth perception is definitely going to change more than it already has. Look, if a kid wants a drug, they'll get a drug. There's no barrier to that anymore with access to online purchasing and all those things. But with legalization, youth perception is going to change. They're going to be more welcoming of marijuana. When I was younger, it did make a big deal. Like, alcohol wasn't as viewed, in my opinion, as taboo as marijuana was. I was on the side where I viewed it as very taboo because it was against the law. Nicotine, cigarettes, something that kills 500,000 people a year, was something that I got addicted to. It's legal. I could go buy it in the store. So the moment I turned 18, I did that. We're going to have to ramp up our programs on education and awareness. And I'm not talking about fear mongering. I'm not talking about shouting at kids that marijuana is going to ruin your life. I'm talking about honest conversations, because to yell at a kid and say, look, this is going to ruin your entire life, but then they go home and their parents smoke and mom's an attorney and dad's a successful doctor, it's not going to make any sense. So we need to have the proper conversation when it comes to youth perception and education. DUIs, I already touched on. I'm not sure how we're going to regulate that. I think that's a negative. And then the last topic, which is kind of interesting, we would think that with legalization, the black market products are going to go down. And I'm not sure I know the answer to this, but from what I've read online, in states that have recreational and medicinal legalization, the black market is actually up, because so now marijuana is legal, it's accessible, you can't really get in trouble for having it on you, whatever it may be. And the taxes are so high, people aren't buying their products from licensed dispensaries. People aren't buying their products from medical dispensaries. They're getting them off the street. Now, not to say that you can't buy a quality product from your dealer, but a lot of dealers and plugs also have very illegitimate, very ill quality products that don't have, QR codes, that don't have COAs. And guys, I'll tell you, we've seen it on products. They make fake QR codes tied to other products that aren't theirs. Okay, there's a million ways to scam a person when it comes to marijuana, and it's happening every single day. So, from what I've read, the black market is actually booming in states with legalization. Not that it's not having success in states without it. I'm in New York, and I was able to get my hands on, fake. TKO carts, Dank Vape carts, Mario carts, all of those fake cartridge products. But it's just something interesting that I think is worth keeping an eye on. Is this really going to be good for black market and dealers? Is it going to hurt their business, or is it going to allow them more room to ramp their business up? I'm not really exactly sure. And I think these are things that we really strongly have to consider. Listen, if you are struggling with addiction, I want to get you to a point where it doesn't matter if there's a dispensary on every corner. It doesn't matter if you can go into a bar and order a joint of marijuana for dessert or an edible for dessert. I want to get you to a place where marijuana is clearly viewed as something that you no longer need in your life, because that's what makes people so successful in their sobriety and recovery processes when they're quitting an addiction. And that's exactly what our addiction mindset recovery coaching programs do. So either follow me into the next video where I talk a little bit about mental health and marijuana, or check out the pinned comment, the video description, or my profile to learn more about our programs and our free resources. I'll see you guys in one of those spots.